Welcome, Laura, to
Thank
NRG
you.
Tanvi Kapoor podcast. I'm so excited and honored to have you on today's show. And I don't have enough words to explain the kind of work that you do. It's just so noble, and I feel it can help us feel so empowered. Laura helps us to connect with our spirit guides, our guides from the spirit world, and really connect with our soul team and get messages and so much more. So many times I feel that when we're struggling and we need that little bit of guidance or just that little message, you know, those times when we really feel that, oh, what if somebody just told me what to do next? When you're feeling stuck somewhere or we're just like really overwhelmed or confused and we just want that one guidance. So I think these are the kind of times, especially these kind of times when connecting with our soul team, our spirit team can help us so much. Handing this over to you, Laura, who's joining us from California today. Thank you again, Laura, for joining us today on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Tammy, for that introduction. And it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm always so excited when I get to speak about soul teams. Today more specifically, it'll be about spirit guides, just because I really connect strongly with them at this time. But yeah, soul teams, it's one of those things where everybody may wonder, just like you said, I wish I could just get guidance so quickly, or, I wish sometimes I feel alone or I don't feel loved. And I'm here to spread that word of love and to share that we are so connected. We're so not alone. We have these amazing teams with us always, always, whether or not we realize it, they're with us and they know us. So every person has their own team and every person has their own spirit guides who are a part of this team. So what do I mean by soul teams? Well, soul teams are made up of spirit guides, and I'll explain spirit guides and how they differ from others in their soul team as well. Guardian angels, archangels, ancestors, ascended masters, which would be like, Jesus or Buddha, those sort of higher beings. And then we also have, our higher self and source that some people will know as God. So that's just to name a few. Many people will argue that there are many more, such as star beings, etc. So many more, but to sort of keep the focus a little bit narrow, because spirit is just infinite. But to just talk about spirit guides today and what makes a spirit guide? What is a spirit guide? So spirit guide is essentially a guide that everybody has in their spirit team or soul team. And what makes spirit guides special from other guides or other spirits on our team is that they have lived lives on Earth before. So that's what makes them very important to us, because without that, they wouldn't be able to empathize or sympathize with us very well. Sorry.
I think are you getting in a message for somebody?
No.
Because or something like that.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep my dog from barking, so I'm asking my husband to get him from the room.
That's okay. What's your dog's name?
His name's Cody. So
Cody. Okay.
yeah, Cody.
Cool.
So
Let him come and be a part of the session. I love
yeah.
that.
Oh yes.
Join
Well,
us.
they're definitely here, but he's trying to leave, and so I want my husband to get him before he tries to start barking to be let out. Anyway, my dogs, I love them. They're always like in a podcast somehow. But anyway,
The contributing. I think like our pets, our fur babies are a part of our soul team
oh
on Earth, and they contribute to us like so much all the time. So I think
yes,
it's pretty amazing if they're part of whatever we do and the podcast
yes.
and everything. So I think it's great. I mean, that's how they contribute, right?
Yes, and I love that you brought up animals too, because we have spirit animals as well, which would be part of our team. It's just our team is so vast, and never ending, but yes, thank you for bringing that up about the animals, because they play a huge role. They're so important. But as far as the spirit guides go, what sort of separates them from others in our team is, like I had said, they have lived lives on Earth. And what's so important about that, just to sort of reiterate before I got distracted, what's so important about that is that they're able to, like I said, empathize and sympathize with us, um, humans living in the physical world right now. Where we live on Earth is very difficult. It's very hard. Earth is a very, very tough school. It's like going to one of the best colleges in the world to advance our souls. And so, when you're on the other side, things are so blissful, things are so wonderful, that it's easy to sort of disregard how difficult it could be for us living in this physical world. So what's so great about spirit guides and them having had lived lives on earth is that they remember, they know what we go through when we have our hardships, when when we're feeling down, or having doubts or fears or anger, feeling those really human emotions. They can sympathize and empathize with that, and be able to guide us accordingly and give us, patience, or the type of guidance that we would need at that time, that we would respond to during those times. So spirit guides, they're the knowledge that I feel like that's available about them is pretty vast. But to sort of, this being our first time talking about them together, just sort of maybe keep it simpler for now, as we introduce them. But just know that they may have lived lives with us in past lives, but they're definitely very much there with us now. Don't be afraid to ask them into your energetic space to give you guidance, give you communication, give you support, because even though they are there and they are our guides, they still do sort of need an invitation to really intervene, because we do have free will. So we have the right to not listen to that guidance, and not listen to our intuition, which to me is the guidance, or spirit communication from members of our team. It's part of that. So, we can easily ignore our intuition, which I know I've done, and I'm sure many people have. And that's our free will allowing us to do that. Does it turn out good in the end? Probably not. But that's how we learn. That's how we learn. Until you start to learn to really know what your intuition feels like for you, sounds like, looks like, then we can, easily start to maybe listen to it more. Because intuition, which, like I said, is sort of the spirit language, can be rather subtle. Sometimes it can be pretty profound. Some people will say they hear like a disembodied voice while they're driving, and it stops them. They're about to go through an intersection and it stops them, or something like that. Sometimes it is pretty profound like that. But many times intuition can be very subtle, and it could just be a feeling, a hunch, or just a brief thought, that we can easily ignore, or easily choose to just brush off, or question. So, it's important to really learn what that intuition is like, because that is the communication that we are getting from members of our soul team. And it's not always going to be loud and obvious. So.
Right. So we need to work and develop, the intuitive aspect of our, self, in the sense that we need to learn to listen to our own intuition. Okay. And because that is how I mean, from what I've read and from what you've just also told me, that is how we get messages. And from our spirit guides, from our soul team, from ascended masters, whatever it is that you guys believe in. So truly tuning into your intuition to start with, and it's that gut feeling that you get in your stomach, or what you feel in your heart. To start with, it's that simple. So it's really about tuning in and being able to follow that. I know for myself, like in my life, there have been so many times when I haven't listened to that intuition, and I've had to go through some hard experiences again and again in different areas. And it's really only when I, like, develop the understanding to be able to follow my own gut and my intuition, and understand that how that talks to me. Like, it could, in like, if something didn't feel right, my stomach would just clench up and tighten. That is also a way of communication. Or you feel heavy in your heart, or you just feel something isn't right, something's odd. So that is, that is like your body talking to you, that is your intuition talking to you, your gut talking to you, right? Laura?
Yes, yeah. Yes. I
Yeah,
was,
please.
I was, yeah, I was just going to comment on that when you had mentioned the like that clenching feeling in your gut. And my guide has told me that they like our soul teams on the other side will use our physical sensations to communicate with us because we are such physical beings. So that's why we would feel it that way.
Absolutely. And also, I think sometimes we see repetitive signs, like
Mhm.
if we're driving down, we'll see a hoarding that says something. Then we might read, a similar thing in the newspaper or in a magazine. And then we might hear it again on the radio. This is just an example. What I'm trying to say is that sometimes the signs are repetitive. So we're able to kind of also notice that, and then act on it. I think these are the little things that are beneficial, and that's how also spirit talks to us. Now, by spirit, it doesn't necessarily have to mean, um, you know, um, like ascended masters or people we don't know. Sometimes it can be, correct me, Laura, if I'm not getting this right, but it can also be members of our own family that have passed over, right?
Absolutely.
They are also part of our soul team. Spirit guides could be your grandfather, grandmother, your
Mhm.
anybody in your family, your loved one, your friend, your neighbor, anybody who's passed over can also be your spirit guide if they choose to, right?
Yes, normally they wouldn't. Well, you know what? I one thing that I've learned from all of this is you nothing's definite. You never
Okay.
say it's this way or that way.
That way. It
So
could be
I
anything.
so I want to say that yes, that could certainly be a possibility. Um, the reason why I hesitate a little bit is only because from what I've read, is that usually it's not it they're family members who have passed tend to be different from spirit guides. However, I have also done readings where I've connected with people's spirit guides and they talk about how they've lived lives with the person I'm doing the reading for. And during this life, they're a spirit guide on the other side. But in past lives, for both the sitter and the spirit guide, they lived together. Or the person I was reading for was the spirit guide in a past life, while the spirit guide was living the life. So there's no rules. Never
Right.
say never. It can, yes, you have to go with what you feel. So if you feel like your grandmother who you're really close with, or your sister or brother, or a friend, if there was somebody that had passed away during your lifetime that you feel like strongly connected to, that you feel like you heard their voice when they said don't turn left, go right, just if that's what you're getting, then that's right for you. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So if you feel, when I say you, I mean in general, like if people
Yeah.
feel that their I don't know, their mother who has passed is watching over them, and they just know it, they can just feel it, they feel like she's a spirit guide, then she is. The word spirit guide really is just a term for us humans to use and to label them, because we need that. We need to call them something. Um, but really, it's a I feel like it could be so much simpler than how we make it. So really, if that's who you feel is protecting you in general, if people feel like their recently passed loved ones are protecting them now, then they are, and that they definitely need to not doubt that at all. There's no rules. There's no rules like that. There's no black and white. There's no it's always this or always that. Never. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's very profound, at the same time very simple. Just the way you say it, that it's just the way that somebody cared for you when they were here is how they continue to care for you when
Yeah.
they're not around in physical form, right? So something as simple as that, if you don't like really label it, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think it's so profound.
Yeah.
I have a question from Mrs. Shachi Kapoor. She's asking, is it normal? Sorry, is it normally the same spirit guides, or can they keep changing?
Yes. Oh, that's a great question. So, again, I think going back to there just really are no rules. But from what I have noticed, um, not only in my studies, not only in my own communications with my spirit guides or from doing readings with other people's spirit guides, but there seems to be a pattern that everybody has one main guide during that current life that they're living. Um, and so, but other guides, so at least one main guide, there could be more. I mean, who knows? But other guides will come and go depending on what's going on in your life. So, say you're enrolled in school, so you can have a guide who keeps you on track for school. Say you say you're going to come up against a hardship and you're going to need some more strength to get through that. You'll have a guide for that amount of time that you need, and then they'll sort of move on. But I myself know that I have a main guide that stays with me for my whole life. And I'll have other ones that come and go, or they seem to be sort of more specialized, just from what I have noticed. But as far as from other lives, I think that they can easily change. And yeah, like I said, there really are no steadfast rules, and I think it's really important to not go down that path, because then you start to really drown out any possibilities of other things being the case, and just not being open to what could really be happening or out there. But
Great.
great
So
question.
yes, we have two people saying something. So Ranjana Saha says, I always feel my parents are taking care of me and my siblings. So that feeling is the knowing that yes, they are being guided.
Yeah.
The Ranjana siblings are being guided and protected and looked after by our parents in the spirit world. So right, sometimes it's just that knowing, and you know that yes, that is true for you.
Yes, absolutely. And in that case, I really get a strong sense that they would actually be separate from your spirit guides. I just really feel like it's your family who has passed, who is there with you because they really enjoy being with you. They really enjoy being acknowledged and knowing that they're around. I so many times spirit comes through and reminds us that we're still here, don't ignore us, still talk to us, we're still here. So the fact that she senses them and she acknowledges that brings so much joy to them. I can just feel it just brings so much joy to them. And what's so wonderful about that is she has them in addition to her spirit guides and everyone else in her beautiful team. So she's got a whole troop, a whole troop there with her, watching over her and protecting her.
I hope you're listening to that, Ranjana. Lucky you. Then we have Janelle, and she's asking, can an archangel be your guardian angel?
That is a great question. Again, sort of going back to we don't want to, black or white. But I will say from what I have learned is that we do have a guardian angels separate from archangels. Archangels, you can have an archangel, I would imagine, that you just have by your side consistently, because they can be anywhere, everywhere, at any time, all at once. So there really is just there's no boundaries for it. So multiple people can claim one archangel for themselves. It's fine because they have the capacity. On the other side, there's just no, they don't have those physical limits. But I would say that they would be in addition to a guardian angel. A guardian angel would be sort of, I feel like archangels tend to be sort of like in a higher realm in the angel hierarchy, whereas guardian angels, their job is just to work closer with whatever human they're working with. So I would say that you can certainly have an archangel that you feel very tied to, very connected to. And I would venture to say that you, in addition to that archangel, also have a guardian angel and spirit guides. So again, just a nice big troop of a team with you, protecting you, and not just limited to an archangel.
Right. And Ranjana adds and says that I every day talk to them and pray. So that is a beautiful
Lovely.
way of being connected to them as well. And so I have another question from Mrs. Shuchi Kapoor, and she's asking, is it possible to hear a spirit guide, like by that maybe she means like not their voices, but maybe like if you hear, like if you're sleeping and you hear a knock on your bedside or something, is that possible? Is that
Absolutely.
that the
Yeah.
way the spirit can communicate with you? Like sometimes, like you just might hear like a little knock on your bedside table or on your bed. So that's
Yeah.
possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So yes, it can come about sort of like how you had mentioned before, like as a disembodied voice or like a voice. It can, of course, they can manipulate things if they needed to, like physical objects, if they
Yes.
needed to. Think about how when we ask for signs and how, you'll see all of a sudden a feather or a coin or something like that. Those are physical objects they're able to manipulate somehow. So absolutely, I think that they can, do a tapping sound or a knocking sound. And the important part about that is because it's not going to be obvious who's doing that. So the important part about that is to go with your first thought of who might have been the one to cause that sound. Go with the first thought. If your first thought is, oh, was that my grandmother that passed? Or, oh, is that my spirit guide? Go whichever that first thought is, go with that because that is spirit. Your second thought, the doubtful thought, is our ego. Bless you. Is our ego, or it's us and it's no longer spirit. So that's what's going to be important about that. And it could be obvious too if you are actually sitting there talking to your spirit guide, give me a sign, give me a sign. And then in the middle of the night, you hear a sound or something like that that makes you right away think, oh, is that my guide? Then you can probably rest assured that that's exactly what it was. But always go with your first gut. That's why learning to listen to your intuition is so important, because it ties into more than just listening when something feels right or doesn't. It starts to tie into trusting what spirit is communicating for other things as well, even if it's just to say hello, even if it's just to let I'm here for you. I know you're feeling, I don't know, say you're really upset about something and all of a sudden you feel warmth, or you feel like you got a hug and there's nobody there with you. Just starting to have that trust of what you're sensing and feeling and getting through. That's just spirit's way of communicating. So,
Great.
yeah.
And I just got lost in taking in everything that you're saying. I have another question
Sure.
from Mrs. Manisha Chopra, and
Mhm.
she asks, how long does the spirit stay with us? So
So
maybe that could mean like like when they're visiting, like when they're trying to like guide us or communicate with us, how long is are they present, or can they be present at one go, or I don't know exactly
mhm.
whether it's like how long they stay with us in one go or in general, but this is what the question says: how long does the spirit stay with us?
I feel like spirit knows in general, regardless if it's spirit guides or past loved ones or whoever. I feel like spirit knows what we need for how long we need. And, it's up to us to invite them in and out of our energy. I feel like as soon as you think about them or ask them, they're there. And for like, so for example, for me, when I do readings or anything like that, I invite my team in. And at the end of the reading, I ask them to leave my energetic space. I'll close my energy up because they don't need to be there. They don't need to be in my space. I don't need them that close anymore in that capacity. So I feel like, gosh, you know what? They're it just they come and go. I will say I did have a spirit guide that I knew only stayed with me probably for about 3 months, but that was because I was lucky enough to have a psychic tell me that she picked up on that. So otherwise, you may not really know. You may only know based on the trial period of whatever it is you're going through. Or so for me, I'm enrolled in school right now, and I've been in school for a few years, so I know my spirit guide that's assigned for me and my academics is going to be with me for about that long. So I think it just sort of, it just sort of depends. Now, if you mean like, say, after somebody has
Past,
passed,
probably.
yeah, or
Yes.
crossed over, yeah, if somebody has passed, maybe, then it's up to them. It's up to them. I have Where did I hear this? I've read in a book. I think it was Dr. Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls. He was a psychiatrist, and he did these hypnosis sessions on clients where he learned a lot about life in between lives. Very fascinating. But he spoke to several clients while they were under hypnosis, and they said they that he noticed that they like to stay until their funeral, or they like to stay and just sort of, they're out of curiosity really, and just kind of see that whole process, and then from there I imagine maybe come and go. But there's no steadfast rules. It's all free will. It's whatever they want.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she continues to ask Mrs. Chopra that how many years, but I guess we wouldn't know that. That completely depends on how long, your loved ones really want to be around you. So I think there
Yeah.
would be like no set time frame as such, and it really is their choice as to how long they want to,
Yeah.
be around you, or when they'd like to come and then go, and then come and then go. I think that's what I have understood and learned so far in whatever I have read and spoken to, mediums about. But Laura, please tell us more about this. Are we correct? Is this
Yeah.
understanding correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they come and go. And, and it could be years and years since they've passed and still come and go. My grandmother, who has been really important in this whole spiritual journey for me, passed away, gosh, 20 plus years ago. But just a year ago, I asked her for a sign, and she delivered, and it just felt like she was there with me again, and very emotionally overwhelming, but in a good way. So, years that have passed since they have passed doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They can still come and be around as long as you ask them and invite them. So,
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've taken a reading. This is, I think, almost, I think 8, 9 months back with a medium. And, so they usually give you, it's called proof based mediumship, where they give you some kind of proof. So it's
yeah,
something that, either you would know, your parents would know. Like my grandparents showed up in the reading, and there were some things about them which I think only my mom could have possibly known, or my dad. And from the time that I wasn't even born, right? And there was no way that anybody else would have known that.
yeah,
So it was just beautiful, the kind of proof based reading that I got, because it was like certain souvenirs probably that our parents would have gotten from their parents that only our parents would have known about. So they showed up in the reading, and it was just so beautiful. And I, from that moment on, knew that yes, this is something which nobody else could have possibly known if they would not have communicated and told the medium about it, right? Because
yeah.
even I didn't know about it. Only my mom or my dad knew about it, right? Because when they were kids, it was things from that period when they were little, right? So I think it's beautiful as to when, if it all, like, we get a reading done and a loved one shows up, and it's, they will give you signs, or they will, give you, go back to a moment in time which, you would have shared with your loved one, or they would talk about something where you would understand that yes, it's them, and it's not just something that the medium has just come up with on her own. So it's always
Right.
proof based, so you know that it's true for you. And this is just a question that I have, it doesn't come from anywhere else. It's
Mhm.
also something that I asked, another medium, Mark, who had come with us to channel one of the celebrities, who had an unnatural death in India. This is in June last year. And
Mhm.
I had asked, basically, this is something that occurred to me then, and I had asked him that even when souls are reborn, they can still connect with their loved ones from previous lifetimes, right?
I
So they could
imagine
be,
so.
right? Is that possible?
I imagine so. Again, I think anything's possible in the spirit world. Yeah.
Yeah, because when we read, like, in Many Masters, Many Lives, and in all those books that Dr. Brian Weiss has written, it's about how people stay connected with souls through lifetimes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, having been born and reborn, and yet they could be connected to souls that they may have lived with, like, in another, century altogether. So that kind of stuff is possible, is what I believe. Tell me more about some such stuff, some such instances that you've had with your clients where, they've connected with somebody that was present with them in another lifetime altogether.
Yeah, I think going back to that one example with the spirit guide, that one was really, really interesting. Um, I've got a couple examples or kind of things I can share about that as well. But with that one, it was just really interesting because, for him, I connected with his guide, and his guide was talking about how they had lived together. I believe it was during one of the world wars. Like they were fighting alongside each other during that. And then, but in this life now, um, the other gentleman from the past life is now a spirit guide. So that was really interesting. I've also had done readings too where spirit guides will talk a lot about sort of the discussions and the contracts, or the sort of loose contracts that were written or created before the person started this life. So there's been talk about that. I want to say, I don't know if I've come across yet so much the past life stuff with that, other than my own experience with the past life like meditation that I had done, and that was really interesting actually. But I would really urge anybody who's open to the idea to give it a try, because spirit's really amazing in the sense that they will take you to a life that you need to see for whatever reason right now. You need to learn a lesson from for whatever reason right now. Perhaps you're repeating something over again that you should have learned, or that you need to learn to then move on. Um, it could be anything like that. It could be some sort of perhaps karmic lesson, and not karmic in the way of, oh, well, you were a bad person, now it's time for you to pay, but just like a karmic lesson, um, something that just it's time for the person to now experience and learn themselves, and in whatever life. But it's just really, it can be really fascinating. It could be very healing too, to be able to explore those past lives. I think I'm going off on a tangent now, but yeah,
And I
past
think
lives
it's
are pretty amazing.
somehow all beautifully connected, right?
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
me,
yeah.
tell me more about the soul contracts, what you were just telling us about right now.
Yeah, so those soul contracts, basically before we come into this life, we sit with our teams and we discuss the details. It could be very, very abstract. I'm very much watering this down, because I'm sure it's more than even our minds can grasp how complicated it must be to include how we can affect other people's lives as well. who then affect other people's lives. But anyways, we have these discussions about, what life is going to look like, what's going to happen when we're this age, and what do I want to happen. So for example, some of these discussions that have occurred between people and their soul teams, when they're talking about what's going to happen in their life while they're on the other side in between lives, there have been discussions where they've told the members of their soul team, I don't want you to intervene until I tell you to. So they'll know not to do anything. Or I've even had with readings, the spirit guides will show us that they were told not to intervene until it got to a certain point. So those kinds of discussions that may have been had, so that the person who's living the life can learn to the fullest for what they believe will be best for their soul to advance or move on. So they let their teams know, don't intervene until I do this, and then you'll know that that's your cue, or don't intervene until I ask you to, and then that will be their cue. So yeah, it's just these contracts that we discuss, how sort of like a life plan, I suppose, more like a life plan of how if I do this, if I don't do this kind of thing. So pretty loose.
Great.
Yeah.
So, what is the easiest way that anyone can start the process of communicating with their spirit guides, whether it's their loved ones or in any other form? So,
Yeah.
where can one start? What can one do? Of course, like you did mention that the most important thing is to listen to your own gut and intuition and take it from there. So, do you have any other guidance as to how we can start connecting with our soul team and spirit guides?
Absolutely. I will say that um, the number one way that I always advocate to communicate with your spirit team, your soul teams, your spirit guides is meditation. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to get answers when you meditate. Meditation, that can happen. You'll get, epiphanies or aha moments while you're meditating. But what the meditation does, is that it helps it helps with connection even when you're not meditating, because with meditation, for those who may not be familiar, but the practice of it is to really get you in the moment. It's really to help you sort of clear out the whatever we don't need to worry about at that moment. We don't need to worry about the past. We don't need to worry about the future. We just need to be sitting here right now. And so a lot of times it's about focusing on breathing, because that's happening right now. It's something easy to focus on. But sort of the nice side effect of being able to do that and having that practice of living more in the now and not in the worry is that it also helps to clear out and make a clearer channel for our guides, for our team to communicate with us as well. Whether it's through visions like clairvoyance, through sounds like clairaudience, through knowing claircognizance, or just sensing clairsentience, or there's other ones as well. But it's sort of for me, it was an unexpected side effect of meditation, and one that I'm certainly grateful for. But it was paramount in my connecting with the other side, and with me opening up more to my intuition and understanding what was intuition, what was not. Because another thing that meditation will do for you is, if you do it right, where you actually really do try to sit quietly, and not try to connect with anybody or anything, is you start to feel what it's like to sit in your own energy and not in your team's energy. So you're in your own energy, so that when you do either invite your team in or connect with your team, then you know what that feels like. You can tell a difference. So just starting with a simple meditation practice can lead to all of those things.
Right. And I also feel how meditation really helps us because it kind of, you know, slows down everything and we get more present, which is actually
Mhm.
how we should be throughout the day. But there's so much that's going on in our mind and in our heart about various responsibility, various chores that you need to run throughout the day, that there's so much noise within that you're not able to sometimes hear what you feel inside, even your own intuition, because there's just so much that you're going through on a routine basis.
Mhm.
So many activities and chores and all of that. So when you meditate, you actually become more present. And when you become more present, that is when you're able to actually just slow down a little bit, follow your breath, and then listen
Mhm.
and get clear guidance. I feel that's how it works for me, at least. And I am not like a professional medium, Laura, but um, when I started working more on my intuition and more on like really listening to, uh, you know, knowing what you already know. So for me, that journey began, I think, in around 2014 when I started working more on developing my own intuition. And a couple of years later, I realized that I was able to get some messages, uh, never for myself, but they were for other people. Again, I don't do this professionally, but I just remember this one instance. My friend had lost her father, and he fell ill suddenly, and he passed over. And so they were basically looking at the business together, she and her dad. So there were a lot of ends that were left loose, and she felt
Mhm.
very, very lost. So one day when she was sitting here in my house, I just got this message. It just came to me from somewhere. We weren't really channeling or anything like that. And she was like, okay, this is something that I needed to know regarding that paperwork. And it was just one or two words that didn't really make any sense to me, but it made sense to her. So sometimes it's just really about, for people who are trying to tune in, to try not to also make um, sense of what you're getting, but just be open to what you're receiving. And sometimes it may not even be for you, it could be for somebody sitting next to you. But I think with that sense of just being very open to receiving whatever message you get, I think that is a good starting point after you meditate. And and then just seeing what shows up and having like very little expectation. I think that would also be a good thing, not to like have very high expectations of
Mhm.
what's going to show up or who's going to show up. Because sometimes what happens is when somebody who's very dear to us has passed over, we only would like to connect to that one person, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes somebody else shows up, who could have a valuable message. So I think one really needs to be very open also to seeing what really shows up and open to receiving what shows up.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and you're so right on so many different things. I want to comment on what you just said. One is, yes, you have to just be open to whatever comes through, and also, having those realistic expectations. It's not going to. It's not. Don't expect it. How do I say this? Um, don't. Hmm, don't don't expect it to be like all of a sudden you see your spirit guide there in front of you, or you're
Yeah.
having this full on conversation. It's going to expect it to be a lot more subtle than that, um, because because it tends to be subtle, but it's profound. It's still profound. It'll still be like, wow, that's amazing, or you'll like get this good idea all of a sudden. So expect it to be more like that versus now spirits are walking around your house or anything like that. It won't be like that. Channel writings, also just journaling, is another good way as well, because it just sort of keeps your mind busy while you're able to just write whatever you're thinking. And then that way, you're able to you can get messages that way also. But yes, you're absolutely right. Spirit will use the opportunity to connect with somebody who they see is sort of maybe open, whether it's because they do meditate, or they have there's something about their light that just attracts, spirits too, or anything like that. And just, you have to be, especially if you ever plan to go see like a medium or a channeler or anything like that, or psychic, you just have to be prepared for, yes, you can come with your questions, but spirit's going to tell you what they know ultimately you need to know, or who needs to come through you. I mean, I've had it where I've had people come through for my sitter, and there, it's not even for them, but the spirit knows that the sitter is going to see their family member who's still alive, um, who would never go and see a medium, but they have a message to pass to them. So really, you just have to be very very open to this, because a lot of it is it can be out of our control, because it's based on our highest and best good, and we may not always know what that is, but spirit tends to.
Absolutely. And so many people feel more connected to spirit like at night. My logical reason for this is because there's so much happening, during the day. You're running to work, you have responsibilities at home. You're probably going to meet a friend for coffee, or, heading out somewhere for dinner with your family. So when you come back and when you're like just by yourself or in bed, and there's like peace around you, and you're
Mhm.
just more relaxed, and your subconscious is also like more relaxed. That is when you can actually hear messages. It's not like, people only from the other side, or your loved ones from the other side, are only going to communicate to you at night. No, I don't think that's the case. The only thing is that we are more receptive to kind of tuning in when we are more at peace and when we are more relaxed. So, this just came up because a lot of time people have this fear associated with communication, and why only at night and this and that. But I think it's just because we can tune in better at, at a given point in time, where we are more relaxed and we're not focusing on other errands and running around here and there. But I think spirit is present with us to give us and whatever guidance, or to communicate with us like throughout the day. So I think it really is more on us and not on them.
Yeah.
Be able to only communicate at night. And
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that. What better time to try and communicate when we're starting to fall asleep? When it's like our busy mind is starting to quiet, just like you said. What better time? Another thing that I heard too was that at nighttime there's more moisture in the air, and it's better for the energy too. Maybe on a more like scientific standpoint. So I have heard that as well, but I think, I mean, what you said was perfect. Was perfect. Yeah,
thank
definitely.
you so much, Laura. This session has been so, it's
Mm.
given us so much information and such valuable information. And for any of you guys who want to connect with um, family members that are not present with you at this point in time and passed over, please feel free to connect with us. And I'd be very happy to connect you with Laura further and see where this takes you. It a lot of cases where you have lost your loved ones suddenly and have not even got a chance to properly communicate with them, and you still feel grief associated with that. You have a lot of questions in your mind as to how your loved one may have felt. At that point you may not have been able to physically be present with them or speak with them. So this is the kind of grief, healing that you can actually get through a session with Laura. Um, and really, it helps you heal of everything that you're feeling as a result of how your loved one may have passed over. You may not have got a chance to communicate with them properly. So this, it may help you feel better and ease your pain and your grief. And for others who just want to like get some guidance on anything that they're going through, or just receive some blessings and guidance, this is a very perfect way to connect with your loved ones on the other side. And thank you so much again, Laura, for joining us. It's pretty late your time in San Diego, California. So thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you
Do
so
stay
much.
connected with us, guys. I would love to have Laura back here for more. on mediumship and channeling in future episodes. So do stay tuned. And the podcast Energy Retreat with Tanvi Kapoor is currently playing on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and Alexa. And you can watch the live stream at any point on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us today. See you, Laura. Thank you so much, Laura. It's really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.